Hello everyone, thanks for tuning into today's video. It's JMA Friday today, so we have a look at the weather for the coming month with the Japanese and CFS V2 models from the United States to see what could be around the corner for the coming month. It's taking us into March. We've got a colder week coming up this week. We'll see how long these models are expecting this to go on for. So before you get on with that, just very quick to say about the ads. There's 6 articles on all the pages, so guys, over to have a browse widgets and click through the links if there's any articles that are interesting. Thanks so much for doing that. It's helping to keep us completely free. The websites that we're using for the JMA updates over the website, the Japanese model and the CFSB2 can be found on the links page. A lot to get on with today, so I'm rushing through. We're going to start off with 500 millibar height anomalies from the JMA model, broken down to weekly periods. So the first week period is the week that we're currently in, going from the 12th through to the 19th of February. With these charts, blue is always extrapolating to low pressure, and red is extrapolating to high pressure. So for the coming week, we've got a trough of low pressure sitting around and generally to the south of the country, and that leaves us with a ridge here in the Atlantic and also away to the north and the east of the country, and the jet stream is going to the south. So we're going on the cold side of a jet under that trough of low pressure. We're in a trough and we're on the cold side of a jet. It's going to be pretty chilly, really, and there could certainly be some night frost. In fact, there may even be some snow. I think the risk of snow over the weekend is going to be quite limited. There could be some snow showers around on Sunday, but I think the greatest risk of snow could be on Wednesday and Thursday next week as a weather system tries to come in off the Atlantic and sort of comes up against this wedge of cold air, and it kind of comes to a little bit of a standstill. So that could be the greatest risk of snow, I think, as we're going through into next week. If we have a look at week 2, this is going to take us from the 19th through to the 26th of February. What we see for this one is that, again, we've got a trough of low pressure very close to us, but it's just centred a little bit more to the west and the northwest. So we're not quite as far south of the jet stream with this one. The jet is going a little bit like that. We're probably still almost on the cold side of a jet, but it's a more Atlantic-driven pattern, if you see what I mean. So it's probably fairly chilly still, this, through the middle part of February, but it's not as cold as the coming week, and the flow is generally more from the Atlantic as opposed to coming from the north, as it will be during the coming week. Nevertheless, it's still fairly chilly and unsettled. And then we go through to weeks 3 and weeks 4, which takes us from the 26th of February through to the 11th of March. So going off into the first month of spring. And what I find with this one is that, again, we've got low pressure up to the north and the west. The jet stream is going a bit like that. So the jet stream is coming more or less through the country. And, yeah, it's going to be Atlantic-driven, again, with that. And probably it's turning milder as well, because I think over time the jet stream is coming back northwards again, and it's more or less running through the country rather like that as we're going through into the 3rd and 4th weeks of the month. So the temperatures with this, if we have a quick look at the JMA temperature forecast of the coming week, it's below average. You've got a colder than average week. We're just up here in the far right-hand corner of the chart as you're looking at it. So for the coming week, again, this is the 12th through to the 19th of February. We're coming out a bit colder than average for the coming week, and we haven't seen that very often through the course of this winter, of course. The rainfall for the coming week, precipitation, is coming out generally above average as well. So colder and wetter than average week coming up. That could well give us the chance of some wintry conditions. Like I say, I think the greatest risk of snow might be around the middle part of next week. If I have time, I might do a quick update on this this evening. And I'll perhaps put it on the Snow Watch page, because it hasn't seen much action, the Snow Watch page this winter, so I might put it on there this evening. But it's a long way off for the middle part of the week next week, and I'm not sure whether it's really suitable to be doing an update about it yet. But if I have time, I perhaps will do something this evening. The second weekly period, in terms of temperatures from the JMA, this is from the 19th through the 26th, is still coming out a bit cooler than average, but not as cold as the coming week. So as I said, I think it's still a fairly chilly week for the middle part of February, but it's not as cold as the coming week will be. and it is a little bit more Atlantic driven. Nevertheless, still a bit below average there through the middle part of February. Precipitation again coming out above average, another wet week coming up if the model has it right. And then weeks 3 and weeks 4 turns milder. So this takes us to the end of February, inside of March, 26th of February through to the 11th of March. And the yellow colours are appearing there, indicating a little bit of a burst of spring, would you believe, as we go through to the end of February and the start of March. Of course, we're going into spring in March, so it could be very pleasant, that, if it starts to warm up. But the rainfall's still coming out above average, still in those blue colours there for the final 3rd and 4th weekly periods. So, although the temperatures are turning milder, it's still pretty unsettled. Let's have a look at the CFS, see how that sees things over the coming months. So again, these are 500 millibar heights broken down into week periods. The first week period is the week coming up, the 12th through to the 18th of February. Very, very similar to what we're just looking at from the JMA, a trough of low pressure sitting over and a little bit to the south of the UK, with this ridge in the middle part of the Atlantic and up to the east of the country. It places us within that trough on the cold side of the jet, with the jet stream going a bit like that. The air coming down from the north, possibly even from the northeast at times. So pretty cold week will be expected through the course of the coming week under that trough, with the jet stream going well to the south. Very similar to the JMA for week 2. This is from the 19th to 25th of February, in that we're still within a trough of low pressure, really, but it's being placed more towards the west and the northwest, and that means that the flow is going more westerly. So you'll expect temperatures to be warming up here, turning milder, but it's still unsettled. It's still Atlantic, or it is Atlantic driven, so the bands of rain coming in, but the temperatures starting to stage a recovery. Week 3, this is from the 26th of February through to the 3rd of March, is very similar. Again, the trough of low pressure is just away to the north and west. Jet stream coming more or less through the country, so it is still an unsettled period going through even to the end of February, but with the flow more from the Atlantic as opposed to the north and the northeast, I think it's a milder period coming up there for the end of February as well. And then finally we go through to week 4, which is the 4th through to the 10th of March, and it's all looking very similar. Trough of low pressure up to the north and west, ridging though is strengthening down to the south, so I think the temperatures, if anything, here are lifting up as we start to drag up more of a southwesterly flow. Notice all of this red up here, though, appearing over top of the pole. That could be tied in with that sudden stratospheric warming event that's been going on. Up to this point, the 4th of March, it isn't really in a position to be delivering us cold conditions, but watch out for that. That's a lot of red that we're seeing up here. And if it was to get itself in right position, it could start to deliver us some colder conditions as we go through into March. So I'm not sure quite what happened there. So the temperatures for the coming month from CFSD2 looking like this. The coming week coming out colder than average. Haven't had this very often through this winter at all. Just 1 week, I think, in January was a bit colder than average. Well, this is another week that got coming up that should come out with below average temperatures. It doesn't last, so week 2 sees temperatures staging a recovery. Now, at this point, the JMA is sort of going for still a bit cooler than average, really, whereas the CFS wants to ramp up the temperatures back, ramp them up back above average. I think it'll probably be a slower recovery in the temperatures than this is suggesting, actually, so I'm not sure it'll be quite this mild for that second week from the 19th through to 25th of February. Week 3, that one is looking milder than average as well, and that's in line with what the JMA is showing. It is showing a milder than average end to February and start to March, so we're both in agreement about that. Week 4 also coming out milder than average, and dare I say it, a little bit of a taste of spring there. As we go through that early part of March. That takes us up to the 10th of March. But rainfall for the coming month from CFS looking like this, near normal to above average in the south, near normal elsewhere. That's indicative again of that jet stream shifting southwards within that trough of low pressure, so that's the reason it's turning colder for the coming week. Week 2 looking wetter than average in the north, bit drier than average in the south, so it's all going westerly again as we go through that week from the 19th to the 25th, but it might be doing a bit quickly. Week 3, 26th February through to the 3rd of March, that one's looking wetter than average, or wet into what will be a very wet winter coming up there. And then week 4, the 4th through to the 10th of March, that one comes out a bit wetter than average as well. So quite a unsettled start to the spring, if this is correct. So we're looking at a colder week for the coming week. They're both in agreement about that, the JMA and the CFS. It's going to be quite a cold week. Greatest chance of snow might be around Wednesday next week, when the Atlantic's going to try to dislodge this wedge of cold air, and it could end up as snow. And then after that, probably a slow recovery into the second half of February. I think the CFS might be a bit progressive in lifting those temperatures up in that second week. So let's just say a gradual recovery takes place in the temperatures, leading to probably a relatively mild end to February. What happens as we get through into March? They're both in agreement that it's going to be quite mild, really, and fairly wet as we go through into the start of March. So it doesn't really imply that this sudden stratospheric warming event over North Pole that we've been talking about in the past couple of weeks doesn't imply that's going to have much impact. But of course, it's very early days on that. It's only just starting to move down into the lower layers of the atmosphere. So let's wait and see. It could be, as we're going out to the end of February and the start of March, that these models are getting it a little bit wrong. They're trying to revert back to that westerly pattern too quickly, or underestimating the extent of the blocking that could occur from this sudden stratospheric warming. But as I always say with these sudden stratospheric warmings, you never know where the blocking is going to set up, and you can just as easily be on the mild side of blocking as on the cold side. And that's actually what the CFS is doing by the time we get through to weeks 3 and weeks 4. It does create quite a lot of blocking over the pole, but in the wrong position to deliver us cold weather. So, well, that's how it's looking for the coming month anyway on today's JMA update. Of course, we'll do it all again next week. Tomorrow, though, we've got weekend forecast, and there will be some wintry conditions in with that as well. So, come back for that and see what's happening. As I say, I might update Snow Watch this evening. I'll see what time I've got about next week's weather. It's very early to be doing that, though, so maybe I won't. You have to wait and see. All right, thanks for watching. Bye for now.